Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So we got 2 more days for Evolutionary in the timeout booth, and then we'll be able to start putting videos up over there again and shift to what we want to shift to, as long as we don't find something else to hit us with. So please make sure that you are subscribed to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and EEARTS. Both do have unique material on them. And so we put up one yesterday, the single most important message we shared. And again, that was with Cindy in a semi-trance channel. And, to me, it hits me as one of the most important messages that you could possibly get. So hopefully more people will check it out.
Indeed.
And so we do want to thank our Patreons. We couldn't do it with your guys' support over on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi, where you could do one-time support for the channel, or you could do monthly just by clicking that, and you could adjust by the number of coffees. And yeah, $5 for a cup of coffee might be cheap soon the way everything is going here.
That's definitely true by now.
Absolutely. We are in just rapid inflationary times. Do check out more about us, too, over at evolutionaryenergyarts.com. And also there's a link on the top of every video to Medicinal Foods. These are really good people with all sorts of good products that could help boost your immune system. And also detox. We got to detox in these times because this environment is toxic. As we know, we are behind enemy lines in a spiritual manner. And we have a long duration magnitude 3.4 M-class solar flare that erupts from AR 3032. It did generate a large CME, and this is something to keep an eye out for, because a lot of you guys are getting more and more sensitive. I know, Cindy and I are very sensitive, and you might react in different ways. You might all of a sudden feel awesome and wired and like hyper, or you might feel like I don't want to do anything but just sleep.
Well, it really depends on what the soul needs. If you need to heal, then you're going to sleep. If you need to process, then you might feel a little anxious, or, you might feel really motivated, but it definitely affects people.
So we could see this peak of this wave. Everything is like waves, isn't it, in this universe that we're in. This peak right here is what we're talking about. And you can see the KP was up to 5. It's actually expected to get as high as 6 in the next 24 hours or so. So, we'll have to keep an eye on that. And here is the LASCO view, and you'll be able to see it emerge. Now, this area is not directly Earth-facing. So even though this is a decent-sized solar flare, when we look at Enlil, it looks like, again, this is Earth right here in the middle, and we'll watch it as it comes out. You could see it. It looks like we're going to get some of it, not like a dead-on, straight-centered blow, just more of a perhaps glancing blow. But in these times, with so many different agendas in play, I wouldn't be surprised at all with any sort of issues with the grid.
Yeah, we really need to watch for that coming up.
And meanwhile, the Schumann doesn't look too crazy. Today the power is at 17. We'll see if that goes up, as our consciousness is always changing. And we do feel that a lot of what we're seeing, like if you look to the solar cycle, it's ahead of schedule. It's way ahead of schedule. Actually, I think it's got some people perhaps perplexed, but I do think that's, God with the big G, source with the big S. Trying to set things right and trying to even the playing field.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's because source is not as predictable, whereas AI is.
Aha, and we'll touch on AI again. So Texas power use tops all-time record as heat is baking the state. Yes, it certainly is. And electric use is obviously soaring. So this is topping levels last seen before the plague upon the land and setting all sorts of records. And let's just hope this can hold up, because this can be very, very deadly if it doesn't. And then, of course, we have that artificial flavoring involved. As we know, there's so many satellites. There's tens of thousands of satellites up there. And we don't know what they're all doing. We really don't. So, We just have to put out our best intentions and send out our positive vibes. Everybody be protected, because when you have a heat wave like this, and as I was sharing, like in our area, in the greater Texarkana area, Dallas is supposed to be well over 100 today, and so it's going to be toasty, and there's 10 days that are all like 96 and above. That's intense. That's a serious heat wave, and Texas is toasty in the summer, that's for sure, but this is more like August. This is more like the worst of summer, and we didn't even really get to summer officially yet.
No, it's definitely not looking too good. And in your area, light workers, definitely cloak your area so it's going to be safer.
Absolutely. And let's send out the intention that people catch on to everything that's going on in this world as we watch this script play out. We know of the ties between the W period, E period, F period, and Zelensky over in Ukraine, and this previous actor who played the role of president of Ukraine, who is now playing the role of president of Ukraine on the big stage, is calling for international support for Taiwan before the fine dining ware is heading in. So, that should give you a little idea of the plans, because of course, this is all one big stage. And of course, they have to basically always sell the public on what's to come next, plant the seeds. So people are like, well, I did hear that somewhere. Who told me that? As far as I should have expected this to happen, right? They were talking about this. So all these seeds are always being planted.
Everywhere too. So it's a matter of paying attention to where they're putting the flashlight so that we know what's going to happen. And this guy's already had his dress rehearsal.
Absolutely. And we're going to come back to those type of topics. But let's, again, recognize, I don't think that the average person in any of these countries wants to see conflict. Conflict brings about the increase in certain businesses. It's really that simple. And it also brings about new opportunities for control, new opportunities for more legislation, new opportunities to take advantage of the fear out there. And then the fear itself is new opportunities for feasting for certain entities that don't reside on the 3D plane. Soaring inflation fuels bets on sharper Fed rate hikes, perhaps as much as 1 whole point. So this is, we're in that period of inflation heading towards hyperinflation. And yeah, absolutely. If you think things are expensive now, well, again, just look to Venezuela. Just look to what Venezuela had to survive. And, I didn't include it here, but there is a video out on Twitter showing that person that, if you remember, not too long ago, was recognized as being the new president of Venezuela, right? His initials are JG. And he was recognized in a restaurant over there in Venezuela, and then the public was going after him. He had to vacate the premises because they were really going after him. Again, we don't really necessarily know, unless we're there, the sentiment of people inside their particular country. When we look over here and we see what's happening in the market, it looks pretty ugly. That's a lot of red. I did, notice that silver has dropped. I think the high was 28 and went down to about 21. As you can see, there's red everywhere. And, this is just interesting times, to say the least, because what's going to happen, and it is happening, where people, you're going to be so concerned with just basically putting food on the table, staying warm in the winter, cold, and cool, I should say, in the summer, and just basic things that it's going to cause a lot of things to just, there are a lot of different industries and businesses and items will not get purchased. And so it's going to cause that ripple effect throughout the economy. But we do know there is a tremendously large reset underway, the greatest reset we've ever seen in our times, in modern times. And so, most of us are not really surprised, those that are watching this channel.
No, not surprised at all. In fact, just trying to encourage our family members to be ready and be prepared. As hard as we try, sometimes our own family, they don't listen to us, but we can't give up on them.
No, so, this is going to be a painful period for most. Some, not so much, It really, really depends on the person. One of our family members was sending us photos of their blueberry patch, as Cindy and I are so happy because we're going to be able to maybe get, I don't know, half a dozen or more quarts of berries this year, ahead of schedule from what we anticipated. Next year we'll have, a very large amount, but they had so much. I can't imagine taking the time to pick them all. It just is mind-boggling. But what can be achieved to get outside the system, like, our dear sister Nicole that we talk about so much. We love you, Nicole.
We're so proud of you.
She has 100 acres in let's say the Appalachians. And, she is so productive. It's just mind-boggling. And, could she survive with everything stopping? I think so. No problem. More than no problem. I think she would just thrive. But that's the exception to the rule. So we have to get as many people as possible aware of what's coming and out of the system. Start to be as self-sufficient as possible. And many will say, I can't afford to do that. Well, just think about ways. If there is a will, the way will be found. And, that is easier said than done. But, this is somebody that's more than once left secure places in my own life with absolutely nothing but a vehicle that was falling apart in a tiny sub-economy car, and start totally from scratch, leaving situations that most people wouldn't leave just because Spirit told me it wasn't the path. And so if we can listen to that little still voice within, we can be guided through the most dangerous of times. You ever wonder why some people seem to make it through the greatest, most disastrous events and they come out the other side and they're fine, and other people don't? A lot of times it has to do with our connectivity to the higher densities and our ability to listen to that little voice within and not be caught up in the muck and the mire, and listening with our external ears. Listen to the internal.
Very important to find that center, find that place of peace, because no matter what, the world is going to be falling down all around us. So we have to learn to find that peaceful center at some point in our lives, and now is a really good time.
As you see, stocks open with 5th largest sell program in entire history. Bonds, Bitcoin, bullion, all battered. It's that stillness in the storm. And this is something that has been spoken to us from our guides. It's all how we react emotionally. And so even when we're in really, really trying times, it's a matter of keeping under control. Because if we don't get caught up in the drama, then we could act from a different place than fear-based reaction.
Right. I mean, our surroundings are very much going to mirror us, and whatever we do when things are going on, that's how things are going to go on out on the outside of us. So our internal, if that is in order, then our external is going to be in order.
Food prices set to soar even more. Kraft, Tyson, McDonald's owners say higher fuel, labor, and ingredients costs going to be passed on to consumers. Well, maybe it's an opportunity to stop buying all the processed foods in the first place and say, I'm going to live a little simpler. I'm going to actually cook my own stuff instead of buying these frozen dinners, instead of stopping at McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Subway. I mean, do you know there's the same materials put into, and you might have heard this, yoga mats, which we did order new yoga mats first time in like 6 years. Ours are kind of destroyed. Mostly by the dogs. Not these two. Really, it was actually Zeke and his nails. that they put in the bread. So you have stuff that's going into yoga mats being ingested via Subway's bread. I mean, look at what goes into the food you eat. We were talking, yesterday's message about we don't want to take AI into us. AI, there's all sorts of artificial things we're taking in all day long. Get back to nature. If it's not simply coming from nature, then you might want to avoid it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely get that source pattern in you as much as possible. So you will be patterned in with the all. That's really important right now.
Absolutely. And I wanted to share one other thing with you guys too. Let me see if I could find it here.
And while Mike is looking, and you're going to talk to me for just a moment here so we can find some more information from you as Rama is whining in the background. I'm so sorry about that. I'm not sure what's wrong. He probably thinks it's food time, really. He thinks every 3 hours is food time.
So I saw this, right? Smithfield Foods to shutter California meat packing plant. It was the largest one in the country. And, people were earning fairly good money, $21 an hour and stuff, and this is all closing down. Their utility costs in California are 3.5 times higher per head than other locations, so they're shutting this down. But are they going to shift it anywhere? Are they really going to shift the production anywhere? And then we see this food advocacy groups defend lawsuit to hold Smithfield accountable for lying to the public. Smithfield's huge. This is a huge, huge company. And what many people might not know is that this was bought out, and this is owned basically by the fine dining ware country. Now, of course, we could say it's a company in the fine dining ware country. But again, is this part of the bigger plan? And, here already, there's lawsuits there because, people are catching on to what's really going on. And again, we recognize as we were starting and looking at Zelensky, and then we recognize we look to Canada, we see Trudeau, we look to France, we see Macron. We know these guys are all on the same team. They're all working together. Meanwhile, Argentina's coldest autumn since '76. South America's freeze intensifies. Blizzards sweep Tasmania. Too much snow delays reopening of the Aussie ski resort. And New Zealand has the best June snow conditions in memory. Is this at all related to Tonga event, perhaps?
Well, there was a lot of change when Tonga went off. There was a huge vibrational change.
And as you can see, Macy's is having another 100% discount sale, maybe not intentional, as we're seeing more and more just random chaos happening as that kind of a wild pack mentality takes over. This is, again, something to be very aware of because it could easily translate into dangerous conditions as times go on and times get more intense.
Well, it's almost like they're setting something up so that they're going to need extra protection walking around there.
And this is what we were talking about yesterday. Many of you guys commented about this coming out, how a Google engineer was suspended because he said the AI program is very sentient and acting like a 7 or 8 year old. And we're not surprised. But again, you got to recognize too that anything that you see humanity doing on the highest levels as far as technology, a lot of this technology is also being guided from above, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, this is something really serious we need to watch.
Or below, so to speak. Maybe we should say, kingship came down from on high and all. Yes, for sure. So, yeah, that's him. He's looking kind of dapper there, isn't he? He's a stylish one.
He's doing really good.
Apparently, Google, I'm sure they pay very, very well. Mm-hmm. Scientists are crafting living human skin for robots. Yes, this is again that direction that we're talking about, the singularity, the merger that we want to avoid at all costs, and they want to sell at all costs. Russia could shut down huge chunk of U.S. power grid in one move. And again, a lot of this stuff is coming out. This is from Sputnik, so this is a Russian paper. And we were talking about the fact that China controls nearly 90% of the world's supply of rare earth minerals. Could starve the U.S. military-industrial complex of its ability to produce new weapons by stopping the resources exports. And uranium, too. And this is talking about how within a year, if we were at war and not getting stuff from China and Russia at all, that within a year, basically all the nuclear reactors in the U.S. could be at risk of being shut down, which is 20% of our electricity. So you add that into there. And then if you remember, there was a report that came out, I want to say 2017, December 2018, and it was saying that if the grid went down for 6 months, we would lose like the vast majority of the population, like 90% of the population, because we're not prepared for it. So again, if the grid goes out for any particular protracted period, it's very dangerous, especially when you have that crazy mob mentality that we see so often. I mean, we haven't shown, there's so many videos that are just shocking almost beyond belief for most sane people, for what's going on out in the streets and the cities right now. And that's why many people recognize it's time to leave, where there's going to be just mass chaos and confusion and opportunists that will be preying like hyenas on those that they can prey on.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, but it's better to get yourself prepared in some way, shape, or form.
Now, we were talking about that other puppet over in France, and you see Macron saying France entered war economy. The French president wants to boost military spending in the wake of the conflict that's going on, where. And for the foreseeable future, again, talking about Europe being basically independent of the U.S., really is what they're saying as far as military goes. So again, a lot of things are foreshadowing, and you gotta just say why. Thousands of sheep drown as the Sudan ship sinks. Thousands of sheep, no humans lost their lives, thankfully, but thousands of sheep did. And again, that can translate to many humans eventually losing their life, as well as Africa is, again, probably the number one continent that is first going to feel the pain of the coming famine.
I don't know. It's just also difficult to think about and process. And the way we do it, we definitely have our spiritual practice. So when we come across this information that we need to get out to you guys, we definitely go back and recenter ourselves, because none of this is easy. But it's necessary to understand what we're up against and what we need to prepare for.
So it was carrying 15,800 sheep, and it was supposed to carry 9,000 max, and then they lose everything. Is that just poor planning, or was there something else going on there? Meanwhile, Germany has a plan to help prevent global famine. Berlin is considering a special fund aimed at creating a grain bridge from Ukraine. And they're working on that full speed. They believe that up to 10 million tons of grain could be transported out of Ukraine by rail. But you got to wonder, too, how about the Ukrainians? I mean, it's just, what really is happening in there with the Ukrainians? We don't really know. I mean, we've been able to, and again, the cynical part of me says, the reason why we're still having full communications during a war, which is unusual, without any of the media outlets, all these media outlets being totally shut down, is because they have to sell the public. They're always selling the public. And they also have to keep us divided. So, of course, the left wants to talk about the right wants to talk about the left. They'll have the Russians and the Chinese talking about U.S. and NATO and et cetera, always pointing the finger, making it look like it's the other guy, when it's the puppeteers behind the scenes. And the Obamas, by the way, they're looking to get a 2,500 gallon commercial propane tank on their property in Martha's Vineyard. And I did spend some time in Martha's Vineyard, and beautiful little island. It's definitely not cheap out there, and it wasn't cheap out there like 30 years ago when I was there. It's been that long. But this could cost as much as $7,500. It's kind of unusual. So what does this say? That, they are getting a 2,500 gallon commercial propane tank installed. Do they feel that the normal lines of energy might be disrupted? Just curious. I have no idea what they are thinking. So researchers discover abnormal dinosaur egg in India, and this is interesting because it's an egg within an egg, and that's curious. This is a heavy egg too. Let's see, what was it? Okay, I'm not really good with converting centimeters, but it was 40 centimeters, average weight of 2.6 kilograms, so 2.2 pounds. That's a pretty hefty little egg. But it's interesting too because this type of thing, then this is sauropod dinosaurs. Again, we have gotten from science that dinosaurs are closely related to birds, so to speak. What do you think? Have you ever gotten anything on that?
Not yet.
Yeah, well, they were certainly large birds, so to speak, and there's definitely something that feels off there. I mean, we have gotten that the history as we're giving is again totally BS.
It is. That's the sad part, because they feed us the story that's most advantageous to their system.
Yeah, and it's almost like, you don't even want to really cover these because, you're saying what they're trying to give to us as a, wow, isn't that curious? And yet so much of it's misdirection that it's almost like, do we cover this or don't? And the Earth's inner core mysteriously wobbles back and forth, affecting the length of a day, so says a study. So they view the inner core as being of extreme temperature and still in a state of flux. So they say the mantle there boasts a temperature of about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 5,400 Celsius. And it's in a state of flux, and that could actually change the length of a day. And it's all about the spinning of the mantle. But then we also get, these legends of inner Earth being hollow. And perhaps it's only hollow just in the crust itself. And, then again, what we've seen on the inside is plasma.
Right. That's what I'm hearing now. There's a mix, and I can't claim to understand it at all, but there's a mix between plasma and crystalline, so I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm sure there's a lot of substances that we haven't been made aware of through our educational system.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are inner Earth civilizations. We have gotten that, and there's also some on different densities than our particular density. So we have to recognize again, everything is about frequency and vibration. The visible light spectrum is just such a tiny little sliver. So if we're only relying on the things being real, of what we can actually see, then we're being, totally misguided. There's a lot more out there than what we can see. And yet at the same time, there's going to be a lot coming into view that was not in view for a very long time in the very near future.
Well, just kind of think about it. Our thoughts are actual things. They make things. So, and there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is out there that we could ever imagine, because when we do imagine, we are creating.
Absolutely. And we've channeled Vishnu's energy before, and Vishnu made the statement, you guys are all creators.
Yes.
We're all creators. I remember going to Bible study, and I remember having a discussion and saying, okay, so what's the ultimate everything of all this? And the answer from the guy leading the Bible study was, well, I guess we're all going to be co-creators with Christ, or co-creators in Christ. And then I was like, co-creators. Okay, I'll buy that part of it. I wasn't buying a lot of other stuff because, again, there's so many contradictions that popped up. But the co-creator part, that resonated. And that's, again, what we've gotten. We are all co-creators. The universe wouldn't be the way it is. And it reacts to consciousness. It's just sitting there almost like it's potential that doesn't come into form until it's actually observed.
Mm-hmm.
That says everything right there.
Yeah. And it's really just kind of amazing to sit and think about, because everything that is on your external is something made up on your internal. So you can understand your subconscious by sitting with that information. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's something to think about.
Absolutely. As we've said so many times before, too, the message of Yeshua was teaching us the mysteries of the universe and understanding exactly our part as co-creators, and thus, grabbing hold of our own reality and starting to wrest it back from, quote unquote, Satan that controls this matrix that we find ourselves in. And so it's all about escaping the matrix that tries to keep us in a limited, fragmented, divided state.
Yeah, I like to really focus on that and looking at what they're throwing at us to divide us. Even our own emotions, sometimes we can get overwhelmed and we might, kind of lash out at somebody else. And that's something that as we get through this, we're going to have to learn to tame that about you that needs to lash out or do something harmful to another one of you, because we're all in the same boat. We're definitely all going to have to get through this. And I always love what Susan Donahue says. She says, we're all going to get through this together. So hello, Susan Donahue. Thank you for all of your encouragement.
Absolutely. So guys, as always, much love. Stay prepared. Keep putting out the high vibes. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.